Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
All right. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Welcome back to 2022. We have a very special guest for you tonight. I would like to introduce, for the first time ever this year, appearing on our show, our humble little show, the man, the myth, the legend, Dire Wolf. Dire, say hello. Oh, wow, you were muted, so let's try that again.
God damn it.
Hello,
and thank you for inviting me on this show. It's a great honor to finally be invited on the show.
Yes, I know that you've been trying to get on the show for quite some time now. This thing that I built on my own with my own two hands, and you're just trying to, trying to edge me out of my own show here.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on. I also want to take this opportunity to pitch my book.
Yeah. And then don't you have a 12-week course, about $4,000?
Absolutely. I want to bring your show into the manosphere, and I want to teach everyone in your audience, if they pay me, of course.
Yes, that's right. It's my audience. Don't forget that.
Your audience.
Audience.
If they pay me the low price of $99 a month, I'll teach them how to avoid being grifted.
Well, that's I will teach them for $99 a day how to grift. So there you go.
And it'll kind of counteract itself, and I like that.
Exactly.
A little word of warning. I apologize if I am a little off today. I am heavily medicated.
Yes, we are both sick in our own ways. Dire's heavily medicated, and I was getting over COVID, and then now I feel like maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm just going to take a lot of stuff before I go to work tomorrow because I can't take any more time off. I have to actually get back to work. I had 2 weeks of vacation at the end of the year, and so I took off 2 weeks before the last 2 weeks of the year, and then I went to work on Monday, and then I got sick Monday night, and then I was just off for the last 6 days again, and I do kind of want to go back to work. I'm bored as fuck.
Imagine that boredom, but also being like unable to walk very far.
Yeah.
However, I'm in good spirits.
Nazi fags.
How dare you?
Jews in the...
Why would you do that?
Well, Adder Lupus has given us $5. Thank you very much. He says, "Welcome back, Dire, and how's it going, Fox?" I've been better, but I'm here. I didn't really want to do the show today because I'm tired, but we're doing it anyways because we had to start at some point.
Yeah, the shows did have to begin at some point. It's never always the best time.
And how could I not do a show when we had this special guest lined up?
Yes. Any case, so our first we have a funny video actually about
No,
year,
it's
right?
not funny, Dire. This is a very serious message from our commander-in-chief. How dare you
I'm sorry
insinuate that this is in any way a funny comment?
We need to give him all the respect due the office, right?
Yes, exactly. Now, while you guys may have tuned in to hear Happy New Year from Dire and I, we actually have a special message from our commander-in-chief, the real president, Joe Biden, not fake at all. He's probably even the highest rated president in history, quite possibly the most votes ever.
81 million.
He has a very special message for you in this new year. Let's listen.
There's a lot of reason to be hopeful in 2020.
That's right. There's a lot of reason to be hopeful in 2020. 2 years ago.
What you might be wondering was this a video from 2020? No, it wasn't.
No, this is a video from 9 days ago.
And now you might think, it's just one little gaffe, right? It's not like we have literally thousands of videos of him being confused about where and when he is, or even what office he currently works in.
Yeah, Joe Biden. Yeah, there's a lot of reason to be hopeful in 2020. They say I could be president.
Yes.
Man, do you remember January of 2020? The economy was rip roaring. There was no COVID yet. It was best numbers of our lives. Trump was slated to have like a 52 state landslide. You remember those days?
I remember those days. How things have changed. Buying gasoline kind of feels like, cutting an arm off.
Or a foot.
Or a foot, yeah.
Well, I guess, that was to be expected, that Joe Biden rings in the new year, 2 years late. I don't know. I don't know that that's unexpected. I want to say like, oh, wow, that's, that bodes really bad for his mental health. But like, I don't think that anyone is confused other than Joe about what the state of his mental health is. I'm not sure if it like could get any worse. Yeah,
let's be honest. This isn't a sign that his health is any worse than any of the many other signs he's already given. Like, this is like just the norm. He has admitted, and it's fairly obvious, that he has people who are in charge of him telling him what to do every moment of the day, and he's barely able to meet those expectations. He's not in charge. And I don't think anyone thinks he is. I don't think the Democrats think that he is. They're talking about the next candidate they're going to run in the next election, which, by the way, isn't him. They know.
Who do you think it's going to be? Do you think that they're going to actually try for Buttigieg?
God, I don't know. I'll tell you this, that Kamala Harris, it's gotten so bad for Biden that Kamala Harris's ratings have, just in the most recent poll, are actually higher, and everyone hates her.
Since we don't have a lot of planned content for tonight, I'm just going to go off on a side here, since otherwise the show's going to be 30 minutes. Did you hear about this 1,000-car pileup in Virginia after New Year's?
I didn't know it was 1,000 cars.
Yeah. So, but you like heard a little bit about this. So Virginia, they had decided not to pre-treat their roads before what was predicted to be, and what ended up being, a very devastating winter storm.
It was advertised very well.
Yeah, and it destroyed like the highway, and there was, obviously because they didn't pre-treat it, the ice stuck, and then people's tires did not. And then they started sliding into each other. And so, yeah, there was approximately 1,000 cars all piled up on, I believe it was I-90. And actually, one interesting denizen that got stuck in that as well was former future Vice President Tim Kaine, who ran alongside Hillary Clinton. And this marks possibly the only time he's ever had to deal with the incompetency of a government. He's the only time he's ever been a victim of that. But a lot of people got stuck in this, and then the response to it was so poor that people were stuck on the highway for over 24 hours in some cases. Tim Kaine himself was actually stuck
in freezing
there for
temperatures
20
with
hours.
no food or water.
Yeah, exactly. So no food, no water, unless you had it in your car. And then, even if you've got like I can't think of any car that can sit there and idle for 24 hours and not run out of gas. If you're in a Tesla, you're going to be running out of power. You're probably going to kill your battery off even faster. But a lot of people were having to make this like life and death decision of like, should I turn off the car? Should I like turn it back on later? What do I do? And road crews were just not able to really get out there very quickly. And what was interesting, did you hear who they tried to blame this on, Dyer?
Who?
So, as you guys know, Virginia had an interesting election a few months ago where Governor Blackface was ousted, and Youngkin was elected. The Republican Youngkin was elected to the governorship of Virginia. Mm-hmm. And guess who they blamed?
They blamed Youngkin.
Yes, but guess when Youngkin takes office?
Not before that.
Yeah, Youngkin does not take office until January 15th. And so, funny enough, everybody on Twitter tried to blame, oh, look at this. A Republican takes over the state and 1,000 people or 1,000 cars crash and, 2,000 people are stuck on the highway for a day. Yet what happened, it turned out that it was Governor Blackface. Governor Ralph Northam was the one who had decided not to pre-treat the roads and also botched the response. But the reason why I brought this up was because somebody else also botched the response. Dyer, do you know who maybe could have possibly, I don't know, levied some kind of federal resource for a transportation crisis, as it were? Do you know who could have maybe done that?
Buttigieg?
It would have been Buttigieg, the transportation secretary. Now, do you know who didn't do that?
I'm guessing it was Buttigieg.
Oh man, oof. Yeah. So Buttigieg really missed his opportunity there because he took a lot of flack for taking his 3 months of paternity leave. Even though he didn't have a baby, and he could have risen to the challenge and said, "We are going to mobilize so many federal resources. We're going to get everybody off that highway. We're going to send as many wrecking crews as we need to. We will put the full weight of the federal government behind rescuing people off of I-90 because I'm Pete Buttigieg and I want to be president someday." And what did he do instead? I bet you he didn't even know that was happening.
Okay, and what date was this on again?
I actually don't know. I know it
was a week ago though, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Either it was late December or early January. So we have some random banana saying that the roads could not be pre-treated when it's raining. Now, I want to point out that winter didn't start just like last week. We know that these winter storms are an annual thing, but we also knew that this particular storm was forecasted even further in advance. So there would have been plenty of time in the last couple of months where they know, hey, maybe we could pre-treat the roads for severe winter storms before they come, not have to rush to do it right once it gets forecasted, right? It's probably something they could have done long in advance in preparation for a storm like this.
Isn't I don't know, isn't it rainy on the northeast? Can't we come up with a formulation for the pretreatment that can be done in the rain? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. I know we had Operation Warp Speed for the vaccine. Maybe we could have Operation Ice Speed for figuring out a formula for stuff that can be run in the rain. I don't know. It sounds like a solvable problem to me.
Yeah, regardless, whether it is Bridges and whatever government blackface's fault or not, we can tell you 100% for sure it wasn't Northam's fault.
No, it was Northam's fault.
So not Northam. I mean, Youngkin. Sorry,
yeah.
It was not Youngkin's fault, which was the mainstream media's narrative. They're trying to blame him when he's not even in the office yet. So, if you think that it's not a thing that was preventable, okay, cool. Still not Youngkin's fault.
Well, and then also, what's the point of a federal government if not for rescuing people from natural disasters like that? I mean,
serious question though, why wasn't there emergency assets available to help out with food and water for and
close the road if the road really isn't that, if you can't pre-treat the road and you know it's going to be that dangerous, close the road. I mean, we have a federal government,
we have
they had a state government, and they just sat there and did nothing.
We have the broadcast emergencies system that allows us to tell people, hey, don't travel on these roads because of such and such emergency, right? Was that done?
Well,
did they make any effort to shut down the roads?
No, because that would have involved facilitating citizens and not just oppressing them. It didn't really have anything to do with lockdown, so they weren't interested. It didn't have anything to do with averting your Fourth Amendment right of search and seizure and spying on you or taxing you. So they didn't really care. It just wasn't high on their priorities. They had a lot of other stuff going on. I mean, they've got come on, Dyer, you've got an election in about 11 months that they've got to rig. They don't got time to worry about the roads. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of rigging the election, it kind of brings us to our first story.
Oh boy, our first story.
Yeah.
3 or 4 stories in. What is our first story tonight,
So
Dyer?
Jan 6, which as we now know, and we could have easily predicted from the very beginning, was one gigantic false flag, an attempt to discredit the president and hurt Republicans and Republican voters. It is being used by the Democrats with their hearings to try to, and since they think that they're going to lose at the ballot box, because they are so deeply unpopular right now because of their lockdownerisms and all the other things they're doing that are pissing the Americans off, like CRT in schools. Instead of actually trying to win at the ballot box, they're moving towards trying to push the Jan 6 narrative to push actual charges against different politicians to try to make it so they can't run in upcoming elections. So that's the biggest rigging of an election you could possibly have, is levying false charges and using the legal system to try to prevent someone from even being able to run.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of background on that. Was after the Civil War, there was several elected members of government, elected or appointed, that had previously fought on the side of the Confederacy, and then they were getting sworn into the newly unified Union, and it was decided, hey, you guys broke your oath the first time when you seceded from the Union and started a civil war, so we really don't think that you should be able to take an oath to the Union a second time, since you've already shown yourself to not really care about that oath. You already broke it the first time. And so there was a bunch of laws drafted that would address that essentially, all of them taken together, essentially state that if you took the oath of office once and you betrayed that oath, you do not get a second chance. There is no redemption for betraying the Union, which is perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. However, they are now trying to use those laws against perhaps Trump, against various members of Congress, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know Ted Cruz is on that list, and a large number of other Republicans and conservatives that did not, for as much as Nancy wishes, for as much as AOC fantasizes, nobody was actually leading an insurrection that day. There was a riot, windows got broken, things got vandalized, some people had heart attacks, but it was not an insurrection. It was not an attempted overthrow of the government. It was just your run-of-the-mill political protest that turned riotous, something which we are very familiar with in the modern age of the Democrat terror group known as Antifa.
Now the word insurrection and also tangentially terrorist attack are important for that movement, because if this is just a riot or a protest, then there is no charges to be made that these people were violating those laws that Fox just mentioned. It has to be insurrection, where you are violating, you're trying to overturn the government, right? And so without that narrative, then there is no way for them to try to remove these people from being able to run for public office. And so that's why they are trying so hard to cement January 6th, which was a protest with some people who rioted, which, by the way, 90% of the people who were actually violent instigators of this group are likely tied to the FBI. There's heavy connections to the FBI members being the instigators in this event. Sorry. It is very important for them that this event be cemented in history as being a terrorist attack on the level of 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, that this is an attack on democracy, like they keep saying, when in reality, this event was far less severe than other events just in 2017 and earlier, where Democrats came in to the Capitol and also protested, and also they actually had Trump had to be going to the bunker once because of riots at the White House, right?
Yeah, you had the Supreme Court hearing for
Kavanaugh.
No, it wasn't Kavanaugh. It was actually, I think it was Kavanaugh too. It was
Kavanaugh.
both of them. Where you actually had Democrats rocking the doors of the Supreme Court, beating on them. And then just a real quick rundown of some of the lies. I'm not going to get through nearly all of them, but a quick rundown of some of the lies from the January 6th was, okay, it was an armed insurrection. Nope, no one's been charged with a gun crime. It was an insurrection at all. Nope, no one's been charged with sedition. They've only been charged with trespassing. They trespassed. Well, we've got video evidence of multiple counts where the Capitol Police invited people in. They tried to rape AOC. Nope, she wasn't even in the building. And also, look at her. No one's trying to rape that. You've got they stole Nancy's lectern. That one's true, and that one's kind of funny. You've got they tried to stop they did stop the counting or the counting certification of the votes. Nope, that continued on after people were cleared out. It was only about an hour-long disruption that they made, which is, a little bit disruptive, but not by any means stopping the certification of the election. It was still certified. Let's see here. I think that's
the only person who was actually murdered.
Oh, that's
that
right.
day.
They killed people. That was the big one, right? So the insurrectionists, they killed people. Nope, no one died except for Ashley Babbitt, who was killed by Capitol Police.
Yes, and that Capitol Police officer was exonerated for shooting an unarmed person who was not in the act of doing a violent act, who was putting anyone at risk. So there was no outrage about this woman being shot when not posing a threat to anybody while being unarmed. But they will destroy cities for a violent criminal who was holding a weapon, who was posing a threat to others, being shot. The complete hypocrisy here of how they don't treat other attacks on the Capitol by Democrat protesters. They don't treat those as insurrections, even when they also were trying to prevent government hearings from happening and things from happening. The fact that they don't treat Antifa literally attacking federal buildings and attacking federal officers, hurting people, killing people, burning buildings down. They don't treat those as insurrection, even though they are violence for a political purpose. But they treat this, which was wholly most people were not violent. Most people were milling through the Capitol that they were invited and escorted through. They're treating this as insurrection, and they're keeping these people, some people who just walked through the building, some people are just present. They're keeping them in solitary and violating their rights, giving them harsh penalties for just trespassing. This is the biggest miscarriage of justice, is what they're doing to those Trump supporters, those conservatives. They are persecuting them for daring to support the other candidate. And at the same time, they're using this event which was not, they're trying to lie that this event was insurrection. They're trying to use it to prevent us from being able to vote for people that we want to vote for in the future. This entire event is predicated on a lie. And then they're trying to say that Trump, because he wasn't quick enough to tell people to leave the Capitol, that he was the one directing it and he was the one leading it. They haven't found anyone who's actually told, no Republican has actually been found having told these people to organize or do this thing, but they're trying to blame them for it because it happened and they weren't quick enough in their mind to telling people to stop. That's not how it works. I know Nancy Pelosi has never told Antifa to stop rioting, but she has encouraged them. Kamala Harris has never told Antifa to stop burning buildings down and to stop harming people. She just pretends it's not happening.
It. She paid for part of it.
She paid for it, yeah. So you can't, just like we can't say that they have to say stop doing this thing, or they're the ones who must have directed it, right? Now we say they directed it because they actually sometimes do direct the Democrats. They actually have words they've been recorded having said that encourage those rioters, right? That's different. But if they had never encouraged Antifa, we wouldn't blame them for not telling them to stop and say, oh, well, you must have planned it because you didn't tell them to stop quick enough, right? That doesn't make sense. But that's what the kind of logic they're using for Trump. Because you didn't come out quick enough and tell them to go home peacefully, and that even when you said go home peacefully, it was really just a dog whistle. You didn't really mean it. Like, it's so disingenuous. This event, can you play the clip from Kamala Harris? She literally wants us to believe, wants to be written in history that this Jan 6 was on the same level as 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. It's ridiculous.
Certain dates echo throughout history, including dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021. What the extremists who roamed these halls targeted was not only the lives of elected leaders. What they sought to degrade and destroy was not only a building, hallowed as it is. What they were assaulting were the institutions, the values, the ideals that generations of Americans have marched, picketed, and shed blood to establish and defend.
You know, I think the biggest mistake the right makes is not making bigger deals about stuff. You know, they get this. They're very fortunate that the FBI were able to plan this January 6th thing, because they will be talking about this for the next 50 years. They've already gotten over the hurdle of the first year. After this first year, I would say that this has now been solidified in history. The history on it's no longer being written; it's been written, and unfortunately, this is now indelible in our national narrative going forward forevermore. They've tried their best to make this a date to remember alongside things like 9/11. And I think, unfortunately, they've been very successful. And I think part of that is just, you know, the Republicans, I guess we try, but just do not make as big a deal of political violence from the left, even though it's far, far worse. And, you know, as exploitative as the conservative talk sphere seems to be sometimes, somehow we weren't exploitative enough with the violence that Antifa wrought against this country for the last 2 years, because nobody seems to care. Even the right, even our supposed conservative congressmen don't see it as big a deal, or aren't able to articulate it in the same way that the Democrats seem to be able to.
We have to make sure that we never concede their narrative, this false narrative, this lie that they're trying to paint about this event. This event was nothing more than a false flag attempt by the Democrats to try to malign and persecute conservatives and try to affect the next election. They're trying to use this to prevent us from being able to vote for who we want to vote for. And this was just a premise that they had pre-planned and executed, where they're trying to capture conservatives and blame them for an attack they actually were conducting on themselves that was in no way an insurrection, in no way a terrorist attack. And the day if anything else, is commemorated as an injustice by the state against the people, including the killing of an innocent woman. That we cannot concede at any point their language calling this insurrection or a terrorist attack, and that's where conservative cucks have come into play, where they, because for whatever their reason is, they are adopting some of this language and helping to cement it into history, a false history that we'll continue to have to fight against because they are giving credence to it. They're giving their support to that narrative when they adopt their language. Case in point would be Ted Cruz.
Yep. So Ted Cruz earlier this week on the Senate floor referred to January 6th as a terror attack. He repeated it multiple times. It was clearly not a mistake. He was reading off of pre-prepared remarks that he had about it. And it was, pretty interesting that he chose to call it a terror attack, since he is using, as Dyer pointed out, and a lot of other people pointed out, using the left's narrative about what happened. Riot, yes, we've just said that. Terror attack, no. There's a difference, and things have different words for different levels of a thing for a reason, because they're not all the same. There is a difference in magnitude between a riot and a terror attack. And Ted Cruz calling it a terror attack, that plays into the leftist narrative, and calling it a terror attack also unlocks certain abilities for the federal government. Calling something a terror attack allows the federal government to act as if the Constitution does not exist. That was the whole point of things like the Patriot Act and the intelligence apparatus, is to just deem something a terrorist or a terror attack, and then all of a sudden there is no more civil rights. And that's what the Democrats would like for us, and Ted Cruz calling this a terror attack is playing into that, intentionally or not. Now, Ted Cruz had an opportunity to redeem himself, where he spoke with Tucker Carlson, and we will allow that exchange to play now, because it was pretty eye-opening. Got Tucker with his classic Tucker face here.
Senator Cruz was game enough to come on tonight. We appreciate that. He joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. So I guess there are a lot of dumb people in the Congress. You're not one of them. I think you're smarter than I am. And you never use words carelessly. And yet you called this a terror attack when by no definition was it a terror attack. That's a lie. You told that lie on purpose, and I'm wondering why you did.
Well, Tucker, thank you for having me on. When you aired your episode last night, I sent you a text shortly thereafter and said, listen, I'd like to go on because the way I phrased things yesterday, it was sloppy and it was frankly dumb. And
I don't buy that. Whoa. I don't buy that. Look, I've known you a long time, since before you went to the Senate. You were a Supreme Court contender. You take words as seriously as any man who's ever served in the Senate. And every word, you repeated that phrase. I do not believe that you used that accidentally. I just don't.
So, Tucker, as a result of my sloppy phrasing, it's caused a lot of people to misunderstand what I meant. Let me tell you what I meant to say. What I was referring to are the limited number of people who engaged in violent attacks against police officers. Now, I think you and I both agree that if you assault a police officer, you should go to jail. That's who I was talking about. And the reason the phrasing was sloppy is I have talked dozens, if not hundreds of times. I've drawn a distinction. I wasn't saying that the thousands of peaceful protesters supporting Donald Trump are somehow terrorists. I wasn't saying the millions of patriots across the country supporting President Trump are terrorists. And that's what a lot of people have misunderstood that comment.
Wait a second, but hold on. What you just said doesn't make sense. So if somebody assaults a cop, he should be charged and go to jail. I couldn't agree more. We have said that for years. But that person's still not a terrorist. How many people have been charged with terrorism on January 6th? Like, why'd you use that word? You're playing into the other side's characterization that, as Joe Kent just explained, allows them to define an entire population as foreign combatants. And you know that. So why'd you do it?
So, Tucker, let me answer you directly. The reason I use that word, for a decade, I have referred to people who violently assault police officers as terrorists. I've done so over and over and over again. If you look at all the assaults we've seen across the country, I've called that terrorism over and over again.
So we'll we could let that play on, but we'll go ahead and stop it there. I think he's That's about all the more you're going to get out of there. He after this will spin off into a campaign stump speech, which is probably his real reason for going on to Tucker. But what did you think about that, Dyer? Were you convinced that Ted Cruz was merely sloppy in his language?
No, I think that he is more of a institutional Republican who would benefit from the populist being affected by this narrative. I think that he cares more about himself, and he doesn't care about the Americans who are being maligned by him adopting that narrative. I think that he is he's great about trying to maintain his power, but I don't think he's someone who is actually, in the end, no matter how many good speeches he's given, I don't think he's someone who, like Trump, with all his flaws included, at least cared about the future of America. I think that he's just really good at giving speeches, not getting things done.
Yeah, and if you, he will go on in this clip to say that he's the only one in Congress fighting for this, I guess, I don't know, our side or something like that. It was a bunch of political nonsense. And it was funny because it actually reminded me of a Breitbart quote, which plays at the top of every hour if you're listening to Breitbart on Sirius XM Patriot. And they play a stinger from the late Andrew Breitbart every hour. And it essentially goes along the lines of, be wary of those who tell you that they're fighting on your behalf and that they're fighting for what you believe in. Make sure that they're actually doing that, essentially. Don't just let them say the words. Make sure that they're actually doing it. And it was middle of last year, I actually took the time to go look at Ted Cruz's Senate record, which I'm sure he doesn't want anybody doing. Because if you look at Ted Cruz's Senate record, he doesn't really have a rich legislative history. He has proposed about 7 bills. They all had to do with naming various NASA buildings after
Nazi
people.
fags.
How dare you?
Jews in the...
Why would you do that?
Well, thank you, Mr. Ray Miners, for the $1 donation. I much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Oh my.
Yeah. Mr. Ping. So Ted Cruz has not actually really been fighting on your behalf. He's been speaking a lot on your behalf. He used to yell at Jack Dorsey a lot. He's a great speaker during hearings, but when people lie to him, like Fauci or people from the FBI, he doesn't actually press charges against them. He doesn't subpoena them or send DOJ requests to have them prosecuted or anything like that. He doesn't propose legislation to start unwinding the surveillance state. He doesn't propose legislation to, work on Section 230 or to roll back the Patriot Act or anything of that nature. Nope, he just trying to get some buildings at NASA named after his friends, and that's about it. But he does talk a good game. He's out there a lot. He actually has his own show on Daily Wire. He's actually a top Daily Wire employee. But is he actually, out there fighting on your behalf? Not as well as he could be. And I think this was pretty clear that he knew exactly what he was saying when he said it. He meant to call January 6th a terror attack. And a lot of people think that he's planning another presidential run in 2024, which I don't see why he wouldn't. He certainly will be a top contender. And I think that he was looking to try to sweep up some of those moderates. And I don't know that moderate wing really exists anymore. I don't know that there's this large voter base in America right now that's like still sitting in the middle, that's not really sure whether or not that's a terror attack or, I don't think that there's that center anymore. That's a big problem, but I just don't think that center is there anymore.
I think that it's even more egregious for him to call it a terrorist attack, to feed in his narrative, when you include in the fact that of those who were violent, we have a Antifa leader who was instigator, and we have members of the FBI who were actively engaging in violence and encouraging others to do so. And of those actually being charged, because those FBI agents are not, the FBI informants are not being charged, very, very few, we're talking like in single digits of people who are actually being prosecuted for Jan 6 are actually being prosecuted for anything actually violent. The vast majority, it's just trespassing, and a couple are getting vandalism. But they're actually, the conservatives were not, the Trump supporters were not the ones engaging in violence. And saying that this event was a event of right-wing violence or Trump supporter violence at all is wrong. It is the Democrats, the government, conducting violent acts upon itself to then blame, to accuse American citizens of being terrorists, and using that as a motive, as a justification to take away their rights and abuse them, and to prevent them from being able to vote for people they want to vote for in the future. Feeding into this narrative that is his right-wing violence at all is wrong, and he needs to be spending no energy apologizing for the damaging of the building caused by the FBI, and to spend all of his energy fighting for the rights of those Americans who are being abused right now by the state and maligned by the state. He should be spending his energy on that instead of trying to feed into the false narrative that's being used to bash them over the head.
And I want to make a distinction between the organized Antifa, Black Lives Matter violence against cops versus randomly assaulting officers on January 6th. As much as the left would love for there to have been some kind of right-wing organization that was organizing the whole thing, they have failed to provide any evidence of that. So attacks...
And they've tried.
Yes,
Lots
and they've tried. So any attacks against officers on that day were by individuals. It may have been for political reasons, misguided or not, but it was by individuals against officers. There was not a overarching, again, insurrection plan. Had there been, you'd be sure that we would have heard about it by now, because the left was desperately searching for some kind of planned, organized group that was coordinating all of this, and they've failed to find anything except for FBI informants. Now, the difference between that and Antifa and BLM is that when someone from BLM or Antifa attacks a police officer, that is part of a coordinated belief system. Antifa and BLM have stated multiple times that their cells have goals of violence against police officers. And so that is an organized effort, and that is what makes the terrorism.
And they do have groups that are organizing on Facebook and online where they discuss tactics and they coordinate their movements, where they actually are organized with leadership. They organize the creation of shields and weapons, and they bust them in and distribute them all to not only to their own people but to the crowds, to encourage the crowds that they're joining to also be violent. It is very well organized. They have people that go and fetch food for the entire group. It is not just random individuals who showed up and just happened to all be in black, just happened to all move in one group, and after just happened to have all the same types of weapons and shields. No, it was planned, it was organized, and executed.
Yeah. And their intention was to hurt cops. That was their planned goal. The January 6th, there again, you've got lots of incidents of individuals coming into conflict with the police, but that happens, all across the country every day. It's not all of it's terrorism, but there is a distinction there. And I think Ted Cruz is still wrong here, and Tucker called him out on it. And I don't know that I remember whether or not Ted typically calls attacks against police terrorism. I'm sure he does, but when it's in the context of Antifa, as I said, that's appropriate. But as somebody who is a lawyer, somebody who was on the short list for being a Supreme Court judge, using the word terrorism flippantly, I don't know that he ever did that. I think that would have gotten him into some sticky spots earlier. I don't know. I don't know what his history on that is. I know he wants to claim that that's what his history was on it, but I don't know if I buy it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Any other stuff on this?
Nope.
Alrighty.
I'm sure there'll be more to come because these hearings are not over and they are not done with trying to prosecute people who had nothing to do with this event as somehow being masterminds of said event.
I will say, I do, as Kamala recommended, I do remember where I was on January 6th the first time, and I was actually at home sick with COVID, and this year on January 6th I was also home again sick with COVID. So seems to be a bit of a tradition. We will all have our traditions moving forward on January 6th. Tell us what yours is.
Our next big story is going to bring our show into the manosphere.
Yes, the manosphere, the not homosexually proclivative group at all. So I
They're
do
hetero-flexible, man.
Yeah, I want to preface this with clearly Direwolf Media is not a drama channel. The reason why we are going to cover this is because I brought up the person we're going to be talking about today is Jack Murphy. I had referenced Jack Murphy many years ago as part of a segment I did warning against walkaway Democrats. The quickest recap I can do on that is just that there are many people who walked away from the Democrat Party over the last 4 years, and instead of being quiet, realizing that they were wrong, and looking to longtime conservatives for wisdom and inspiration, they have instead decided that they know all that there is to know about conservatism and have immediately jumped into some kind of leadership position. They were Democrats their whole lives. They realized, oh my gosh, the Democrat Party is bad, awful. Actually, the conservatives had it right all along. And then they're immediately decided that they are experts in conservatism after having been a not Democrat for all of 5 minutes and entered some kind of leadership position. I did a segment on this, many segments on this about 2 years ago. I'll have to see if we can dig this back up, and put them in the show links. But basically, I had a laundry list of examples of people who were not just Democrats, but in Democrat leadership up until a couple of years ago. And then they were, through some kind of cancel culture, the left attacked their own. They left the left and then immediately picked up some kind of a leadership position in the conservative side. Jack Murphy was one such individual who he was a prominent in Democrat politics in D.C. Throughout the 2010s. He was infamously a big part of the D.C. school circuit, which, if you can imagine how liberal DC schools are, you can pretty much guess. He participated in many party politics throughout those years, and then he claims, which turned out to be false, he claimed that through cancel culture he was removed and ousted from his job for being too conservative, being too much of a man.
He actually was fired for having 2 jobs and getting paid double.
Yeah. And so he went on to write a book called Democrat to Deplorable. This book did not do super well, and he was kind of failing along, doing various things for money, until in 2019, Tim Pool picked him up and introduced him to Tim Pool's 1 million+ viewers per day. And all of a sudden, Jack Murphy rose to fame like a rocket, and he started something called the Liminal Order, which claims to be a training group for men. And so you have this guy who went from being a Democrat to claiming that he got outed by the Democrat Party, but he got canceled. And then he immediately writes a book about his conversion to becoming a deplorable. He's going to be a dirty Trump supporter, just like you. He then tries to take on some kind of leadership role on the right in quote-unquote conservatism, and uses Tim Pool as a booster pad to do that. And he was one of the people that I warned about. Well, we've we had some interesting developments with him the past week, and so that's why, or past couple of weeks here, and that's why we're actually going to be covering this today. Not because of the fun drama about it. Again, Direwolf Media is not a drama channel, but because this reinforces something that I predicted 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
His
Dyer, why don't you give
sexual,
us an introduction here?
His sexual proclivities are not what's important here. The fact that he is a walkaway who has been grifting off of young men on the right and polluting the right's political consciousness. That's the problem. His hypocrisy, that he's not really a conservative leader like he's been saying he is. That's the problem. Now, I want to point out that in his great conversion from Democrat to deplorable, on the Liminal Order website, it said that in the description of how he was converted was that he read online forums and got fit. Like, so you went from being a hardcore Democrat, and just because you went and read some forums online, now you're an expert that people should be going to for wisdom on the right. You've been actively opposing those views for the majority of your life. I have trouble believing you've just adopted those base level principles that conservatives based on that quickly.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of avoiding the walkaways, is that they don't have the wisdom of being in the conservative side for very long. And they typically are just trying to grift and make money, and Jack Murphy is one such individual. So the event in question happened late in December on the You Are Here podcast, which is a show from Elijah Schaffer. Elijah Schaffer probably mistakenly thought that Jack Murphy was of relevance because he received a large following from Tim Pool.
They know each other.
Yes. So being the kind individual that he is, Elijah Schaffer invited...
Elijah Schaffer and Jack know each other from before.
Oh, they do?
They're very well. They're good friends.
Well, I didn't know that.
Long history.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So, either way, Elijah Schaffer brought Jack onto his show, and this was the result.
We've already been told that this show's been hard to get advertisers on.
Yes.
Get out of town.
That is why the super chats mean a lot to us.
They're the advertisers.
Supporting us.
Thank you.
Because you guys are the advertisers. That's why we try to get through all of these and read all your
All right,
comments.
I got a few
Even
more.
if you're trapping me. No, I want to read this one first. Because I started it. I'm going to finish what I started. Anamorphosis says, Elijah, and I apologize for this in advance, Jack. Asked Murphy about the article he wrote about literally cuckolding his wife. I wish I was joking. True alpha.
Wow.
True.
Wow, you went there with that. I have absolutely no comment on that other than to say that whatever people's perceptions is about that, it's 180 degrees wrong. And it has nothing to do with people thinking what they're thinking.
Are we talking about sex right now?
Do you know what cuckolding is?
I totally thought
It's
you were
where
reading...
you get a chicken and you hold it. And
No,
you love it.
I just blanked
And
out
then
for a second.
You make more chickens.
I just blanked out for a second.
I support you having chickens.
We
I
don't
have
kink
chickens.
shame.
I like chickens.
If you have a hen house, that's great. That's you should have your own eggs. Great.
We don't
supply,
kink shame.
Great for protein.
You Are Here does not kink shame. I want to bring that out, that we do not kink shame. If you don't want to have, if you hate women, don't want to have any sex at all, that's your lifestyle. Or if you're a nude model, that's your lifestyle.
You can in fact be you can be both at the same time.
Or if you want to sleep with trans Elijah, Ellie Schaefer.
Literally,
If you want to breed
if
him,
you want to have
that's
sex
okay.
with my ankles, maybe. Kez might allow it.
Brian Schultz says, "Merry Christmas and happy first."
It's true. Brett Ain't Dead said, unfortunately, the proliferation of technology leads to authoritarian collectivism. Future looks gay. Merry Christmas, Sid and Jack.
Shit.
Ja.
Mr. Dickenballs says, "Hey Jack."
See, that's what she does. She does this. Like, she reads it like that's normal. Like, it's not even, she's not even saying, I'm not going to skip the name. She just goes, Mr. Dickenball said.
Could you please clear up the cuck article you wrote?
I am not going to talk about
Again?
this.
Okay.
And basically, you know what? Fuck you for bringing this up right here and right now. Why are you doing this to me?
I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was.
Well, just use a little bit of fucking common sense.
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Elizabeth
struck a nerve.
Yeah.
Harrison says, gonna miss
That's
the
not how
show,
a
but
man
have a good break.
responds.
IHTAC, what's that?
Yeah. Okay.
What?
So.
All right. So, Dyer, what happened here? What is the reference of this super chatter on Eliza's show here?
So a while back, Jack Murphy published an article called what was it? Cultivating Erotic Energy from a Surprising Source. And in it, basically, he described how he was a cuck. He had other men fucking his wife. And he was trying to explain how this was actually an example of his alpha manliness and how it was not, this is part of his alpha manly persona was having other men sleep with his wife. And that's, you know what? I don't care if that's what he's into. But he is trying to sell himself as being an example of how men should act. And this response to something he wrote, his own words, was not how a mature man responds, where he's cursing at someone and getting angry. Honestly, he should just accept this is my history, and just move forward.
Well, and it's also an interesting another example of walkawayism, not necessarily from politics, but walking away from cuckoldry, where he was writing this article as recently as 2015, and then by 2019, 2020, he is now starting a How to Be a Man club called the Liminal Order, and it is another example of somebody who walked away from the polar, like an extreme position. I would say right now leftism is an extreme position. And so you've got your walk away politicians who walk away from this extreme leftism and then jump into an extreme rightism. And then you've got Jack Murphy, who is cuckolding's an extreme side of the spectrum there. And he goes from this extreme of cuckolding to the extreme of selling How to Be a Man club for $99 a month. And he does that in less than 5 years. And it's an example of, again, why do you got to be concerned about the walkaways? Well, because they will pretend like they are an expert in the thing that they have now turned themselves into and their conversion. They will pretend that their conversion has some kind of wisdom and expertise that they can give to you. But it really doesn't. Somebody who's so recently converted to conservatism, somebody who's so recently stopped being a cuckold, they don't really have a lot of wisdom to give you about how to be a man, about how to be a conservative.
He's desperately trying to, when faced with what he's done, his own words and his own actions, instead of owning up, like what a real man does, is owns up to his mistakes and takes responsibility for them. His response was to get angry, and to try to shut down people and silence them. So there was the whole cuckold article, and also that as of 2019, he was doing chatterbait stuff that he was embarrassed by. And his response to that wasn't to be a man about it, but was to get people banned, to get people's posts removed, and to try to silence anyone talking about this thing, instead of actually say, oh, if he thinks this is wrong, and he should be a man about it, say, I did this thing was wrong, and I've changed, right? That's the truth, right? But the leftist of him, is that instead of actually caring about the truth and revealing the truth, he wants to hide it.
Now, this whole event introduced Dyer and I to something. Maybe Dyer knew about it. I didn't know it was a thing. Apparently, there is this thing called the manosphere, which sounds pretty beta to me. And apparently, it is this loose collection community of various influencers that I guess peddle other betas.
The word for that is grifter.
Yes, grifters peddling beta males, get man quick schemes where you can pay them a bunch of money and they will provide you with stories about how they're fucking more girls than you.
We have a problem in our society right now where we have bred a lot of weak men who were bad fathers who could not provide structure or guidance or goals.
And you combine that with takeout culture where I want it now. I want it fast food, immediate results. And so you have all these beta males, these weak men who are whether it's their fault or not, but you mix that with I want results quick culture, and this is what you get.
Yeah. And then so we have all these young guys right now who are wanting to become better, but they don't know how. They are lacking guidance, instruction in their lives, and they are desperately looking for on the conservative side someone to guide them, someone to be that strong male influence. And Jack his group of people like him have taken advantage of them and have advertised themselves of being these great examples, these wise men that can help them be better men, to help them be better people. And that's what they crave. And they have convinced them that if they pay $99 per month to join this liminal order, that he will teach them how to be stronger, better, healthier men who are more satisfied with their lives, their place in the world, more successful, all the same things that religious grifters will say. Oh, you just come to our chapel and we'll say a prayer for you, and God will give you everything you ever wanted, right? And they promise all these things, but all you gotta do is pay the money to get into the liminal order, and then when they get in, they realize the liminal order is just a group of other grifters who are also pitching other seminars and other lesson plans that they could also pay for. And each one promises, you just need this one more thing to get you to that goal of yours. And that never actually teaches them how to be better men. It just teaches them to be dependent on constantly reaching out for other people to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Now, similar to your more political walkaways that are creating these political organizations and trying to take up some kind of power on the right after they were chased away from the left, they see a lot of money available in conservatism. Certainly the alternative media, conservative media has boomed the last decade. There's billions of dollars up for grab and billions more yet to come. Dyer and I are participating in 0.00001% of those billions right here, right now. But you see this from people who used to do Democrat leadership things, where they were involved in getting various politicians elected, organizing Antifa, being on the school board, teaching your kids about gender studies, all of that stuff. And then something happens and they get chased away. Well, what are they to do? They still want to make money, and they still want to do something political because they don't have any other skills. And so what do? They run over to our side. They create this new persona like Jack did. He came out of nowhere with this book that wasn't even very good. And he decides, I'm going to be a politician or a political influencer on the right now because there's all this money available. And so similar to that, within this this whole manosphere thing, which, I mean, Jesus Christ, it is so cringy to call it that. Like, I didn't know that this was a thing until like a couple of weeks ago. And it's so cringy to call it the manosphere, but apparently like that's what it's called, like unironically.
The first time I heard of the manosphere was in relation to MGTOWs when I was doing a response to a MGTOW video really early on in my YouTube thing. And that was my understanding of the manosphere. It's apparently a mixture of different men's groups, including MGTOWs, that makes up the manosphere.
Yeah, that's why it's like kind of this like loose network of communities, I guess. But as much money as there is in conservative influencers or in conservative influence, there is even more money available within people trying to, with beta males attempting to make themselves more alpha, attempting to become more manly, finding some reason why they are not succeeding in the society and trying to better themselves. Self-help is one of the biggest crifts of probably the century, certainly of the last decade. And this manosphere stuff targets something that's even more desperate. To be a man for males, that is something that's a biological imperative. And there's so many males that don't feel fulfilled in that the manosphere has been able to tap into that financially, Jack especially in this, and a lot of other guys too. And I guess part of this, part of the reason why we're covering this too is kind of a warning against that you cannot, if you are struggling with your self-image as a man, you are not going to fix that by paying some cuck $99 a month.
Yeah, so there's two things here. First off, obviously I understand the desperation in a young guy wanting to better himself. But I promise you that if you're having to pay someone to show you how to be a man, you've already lost the point. But the second thing is there are plenty of people out there, men who would be able to show you how to be a better man. Though understand those better men, those people that could teach you things about being better men, they themselves don't need to be perfect men to teach you lessons. But I promise you, anyone who's out there who is going to actually be able to credibly teach you how to be a better man, they will not charge you.
Yeah, and being a man is not something that can be condensed into like a 12-week course where you're reading course materials and you're taking tests and all of a sudden you've achieved the merit badge of being a man. No, being a man is something that you get through osmosis, through mentorship and watching. It's not something that can be taught. It's something that can be observed and learned, but you can't teach it. So somebody claiming to be able to teach it is lying to you.
Right. And the real things that make up being a man are not often the ones that are glorified by these groups. They say that the pinnacle of being a man is being super dominating sex and having lots of one-night stands, and I had 10 girls this week and that shows how masculine and manly I am. I don't think that those things that they are advertised as being examples of being the pinnacle of being manly really are healthy signs of masculinity. I think one of the healthiest signs of masculinity is when someone fails and when they are told, hey, whose fault was this? This thing happened. And they say, it was mine. This was the mistake I made. Here's what we're going to do to make it better. They took responsibility for their own actions. That's being a man, right? Constantly being on the road to being better and being wiser, and not just being a fool who just believes everything they're told. That's a man. The person who takes care of their family, protects their family, and provides for them, that's someone who's more manly than someone who goes and fucks 100 women.
And the least manly thing you could possibly ever do is to declare yourself an alpha.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you this. The most I can tell you right away, if you say you are an alpha, you're probably not.
No, you're 100% not. It is a 1-to-1 ratio of people who claim to be alphas and people who are not.
Yeah. So this is another example of the walkaways. That these are people who are going to try to leech off of the conservative movement, try to make themselves leaders. Well, what they end up doing is leading people astray and harming young conservative men in this case.
Yep. So
if you want to learn how to be a man, the easiest way, join the military, maybe the National Guard.
Yeah. If you want an 8-week course that will turn you into a man, I would imagine basic training is the place to go.
And part of the reason for that is you get immediate accountability. Like you are going to exceed or fail on your own actions. You're not everyone's a winner anymore, right? You are going to be required to take responsibility for yourself, not be able to lean on others to tell you what to do and how to do it.
Why would you do that?
I fart more man than Jack Murphy.
Thank you, The Killing Joke, for the $10 and the interesting comment. Much appreciated.
The Killing Joke. I know that guy. I haven't seen him in a while.
Oh, really?
Yes. Not know him personally. I believe he has a show, actually.
All right.
A YouTube show.
Well, I guess you do too now.
Yes, yeah. I'm so glad you brought me on.
Yes, you're welcome. I for $100 a month, I've invited Direwolf back to the show.
Yeah. So I want to point out that there's a official statement from Anthony Dream Johnson, who advertises himself as being the first president of the manosphere. I know you just realized the manosphere was a thing, but apparently it also has a president.
I will also point out that from my investigations into the manosphere the past 2 weeks, basically the manosphere consists of a bunch of grifter pickup artists who accuse each other of being cucks. And
Yes.
At least some of them are. That appears to be the extent of the manosphere.
Right. So, in response to Triumvirate, yes, the military will actually pay you instead of you paying them.
I don't know. From the stories I heard, it's pretty easy to end up owing the military money by the time you get out.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. But yeah, there's going to be lots of people who also that can show you positive and negative examples of what being a man is in the military. So it'd be a good opportunity for you to develop some of that work ethic, that self responsibility. You can develop a lot of skills. Even if you don't stay in the military for a long time, just do it 4 years. You will better yourself and be more equipped for doing anything on the outside. But going back to the statement from the president from the manosphere, I'm not going to read it to you because I don't think it's first off you can Google it, but the point is that they condemned / disavowed Jack Murphy as not being part of Manosphere anymore. So I guess his own organization is
Nazi fags.
is
How
also
dare you.
just
Why would you do that?
What was that?
That was The Killing Joke, donated $10. Oh my god, the things I seen. Let's see here. I lost it. The things I seen ain't manly. It's like butt-arring stuff. Not manly. Welcome to Gay Town Population U. So Killing Joke's discussing some of the things that we will not be showing on the show tonight. Many other shows have decided to show various clips and images of Jack Murphy in compromising positions. We will not be doing that because it's gross.
Yeah, absolutely. Not what the show's about. And a lot of the criticism of Jack Murphy moved towards just being criticizing him for his sexual, habits. That's not really the story. That's the idea.
Yeah, Jack Murphy being gay is not as big of a deal as him just stealing money from a bunch of people trying to better themselves.
Yeah, so him not making first advertising that he's going to help young men become better men, and not actually doing that, but then taking their money. That's the problem. The fact that he is a poison to the Conservative Party, that he's toxic to the Conservative Party, that's the problem. The fact that he went from stealing from Democrats to now stealing from Republicans, that's the problem.
Well, and I also kind of reject the idea that he was any kind of, influence on the right. I think that his influence on the right, to the extent that he had any, began and ended with Tim Pool's audience, because Jack Murphy released his book Democrat Deplorable in 2017, and it did so poorly that in 2018 and 2019 he was doing porn to make a living because he didn't have any money. And the only reason why he became any kind of prominent, he's gained any kind of prominence since then, is because of Tim Pool. Tim Pool should probably take some responsibility for creating Jack Murphy, but that's a whole other story. But a lot of people and a lot of outlets have been kind of claiming, oh, you know, conservative Giga Chad, conservative influencer, I forget the fuck, Jack Murphy, that, you know, this was a scandal against a conservative influencer. And I kind of reject that to begin with. I don't think that he was ever really on the conservative side. I really don't think the manosphere is particularly conservative either. I think it's just a grift thing for guys who want to bet a lot of women and guys who do. And that it's just a bunch of money exchanging between those two groups of people.
So anything else on this story?
No. Did you want to go through all this stuff?
Let's just quickly go over. I mean, CNN just doing CNN's thing, right? When they're not raping kids, they're lying. So the most recent one is when they're just going back to the CNN attacking Joe Rogan for taking the cocktail of different COVID treatments and accusing him of taking horse dewormer when he did not take a horse dewormer. Well, when they were doing the stories about Joe Rogan and him getting COVID, this is the side by side of their broadcast where they showed his Snapchat and his actual Snapchat. And what you'll see is CNN color adjusted the image to make it look like Joe Rogan was gray and sickly when he wasn't. And is this another example of many that where CNN will adjust the image they're providing their audience to warp reality? Just like how they made Trump more orange, they made him look more sick to try to make it look like he was unhealthy.
And even Fox did that to Trump too. I remember we were watching one of the debates last year, and I pointed it out, and you guys could see it live. It was Trump and Biden side by side. They both had a blue background. And you could see when they did the side-by-side shot that the one camera was extremely orange because the blue background was blown out in the highlights on Trump's side of it. What you should have seen would have been two blue backgrounds on both frames that looked exactly the same on the side-by-side shot. Yet you could clearly see that Trump's was altered and that it was much oranger, which was hilarious that they would put it side-by-side like that when you could clearly see that the color was being edited. But CNN has done this to Joe, obviously, as you can see here. They also did this to Bernie Sanders when Bernie had a heart attack on the campaign trail 2 years ago. His press statement that when he came back, they really, really blew him out. They added a lot of purple to it, to the point where the grass in the background turned purple. And that was actually kind of funny because it was like, oh, wow, yeah, Bernie Sanders, he's so sick, the grass is purple.
So this just further shows people that watch CNN are getting a warped sense of reality.
Yeah,
they are
literally false framing.
They lie so easily as though it's breathing that they incorporate the lie into everything, even no matter how obvious it is. They don't care anymore. It's all about how can they make every bit of their broadcast feed into their lies. And if you only watch what they provide you, you will have a psychotic view of the world where someone who is pretty reasonable, like Joe Rogan, is just going and taking horse dewormer paste and chugging that down instead of getting vaccinated. And going along with the story, we also have recently Ethan Klein. Do you get that pulled up as well?
Yep.
So Ethan Klein previously had threatened or said he could beat Joe Rogan in a fight famously, which was funny because Joe Rogan's fit and Ethan Klein is a fat man. And he also this week continued his attacks on Joe Rogan by saying that Joe Rogan wasn't really healthy, kind of hearkening back to what CNN was saying. And here's what Ethan Klein tweeted out along with this picture. He said, Joe Rogan, who lives on elk meat, egg yolk, and human growth hormone with lungs full of tar, thinks he's healthier than everyone. This MFer is such a biatch that when he got COVID, he threw the kitchen sink at it. If you're so healthy, just write it out like you say a man should. Dude has caused so many vaccine hesitancy and misinformation that he doesn't even have the balls to stand by the shit he preaches. So first off, completely a lie. Joe Rogan has never said that you shouldn't get treated for COVID or that you shouldn't get the vaccine. He says that you shouldn't be required to have the vaccine and that you should be able to choose whether or not to weigh the risks and rewards of getting it, and it's a personal choice. So the characterization by CNN and also Ethan Klein that Joe Rogan has it at all said you shouldn't get the vaccine is a complete lie. And just because he thinks it's okay for someone not to get the vaccine, it does not equate to saying you shouldn't get treated when you're sick. That's insane. So he posted this picture where it shows, how he is morbidly obese, and then tried to say he's got the same body type as Joe Rogan, which is insanely just idiotic. And I say this realizing that Ethan Klein knows he's not healthier than Joe Rogan. He's doing this because Joe Rogan is the most popular podcaster and Ethan Klein's audience is dying and he's trying to get attention.
Yeah, that's kind of Ethan's main shtick now, is to every few weeks or months have a controversy with a much bigger influencer so that he can stay relevant through controversy.
Yes. So I only bring up the Ethan Klein thing because it's relevant to CNN's and the mainstream media's narrative against Joe Rogan, and yeah, I don't think you'd want to be known as for like having an audience because of you saying insanely stupid things. That's his choice. I'm not. He shouldn't be silenced for it. Say all the dumb things you want to say, but he's building himself an audience of one of two groups of people. Either it's the people who are completely delusional who watch CNN and have completely lost idea of what reality is, or people who are hate watching him because they think he says stupid things because he's a lol cow. That's the audience right now, man. Good luck with that.
I will take this opportunity to have a small tangent though, that congratulations, we have made it to the end of the movie. I believe that everybody in this pandemic is going to end up getting Omicron in the next 6 weeks or less. Infection numbers are spiking 1,000% across every locality, and everyone's getting Omicron. Even people who are triple vaxxed or quad vaxxed
Hey Fox.
What?
Here's something funny. So there is a graph showing how the more tests that are ordered in any jurisdiction, the graph matches the positive rates. So if you just produced more tests, the amount of people being found who have been positive for COVID would go up at a similar rate. So
yeah, well, because they need to be doing some statistical adjustment, but because the majority of the country is borderline illiterate, nobody understands statistics, and the statisticians don't understand them either. So everybody just makes up their own numbers. There is a way of doing an adjustment for that testing bias, because if we were able to test every single person every single day,
we'd all have it basically.
Well, yeah, but that graph would actually be accurate as of right now, because they're not actually statistically adjusting that graph based off the number of people that they're testing. Then it doesn't really mean anything. But the people at the CDC and our politicians either don't understand that themselves, or they think that you don't understand it. They might be right about that, and so they're just using it for their own ends. But
the point is that everyone's it's like
and that's the point is everybody's either had it or is having it or will catch it in the next couple of weeks. That's why I'm saying we're at the end of the movie. If this was a zombie movie, the end of the movie is when the zombie virus mutates into a less dangerous version that inoculates you from the more dangerous version. And that's the stage that we're at right now with Omicron. Essentially still after like a month and a half, I still think that the number of people who've died from Omicron, I think it stands at 1, and I think that person was severely had some severely other conditions that were a problem, not that it was from
some
Omicron.
comorbidities.
Yeah, comorbidities. There we go. And so everybody's going to end up getting this in the next few months, or within the next month, and then you're going to have natural immunity, and it's over. Now, will they actually allow it to be over? I don't think so. But this should be the exciting moment. This would be the exciting end of the movie. This is how the Spanish flu ended. This is how the Black Death ended, the Black Plague ended. This is how every pandemic has always ended, is that there's been a mutated variant that is much more transmissible and much less lethal, and it inoculates everybody from the more dangerous variants. That's what happens every time. Yep. So we should be excited about this. I'm excited about it. I got Omicron. I now have natural immunity. I'm excited. It's great.
On the flip side, the Biden administration had a contract for the more COVID tests that would only start production in like 2024. So if you let the Democrats stay in power, they seem to be wanting COVID to last for at least beyond 2024. And Australia is still building camps that would be finished till next year. So,
did you hear about Deltacron?
I heard there was another variant that came out that was found in France. Is that what you're talking about?
I think so.
No, you're talking about like you can have both Omicron and Delta.
No, there was a media article a few days ago that claims that there was a mixture of Delta and Omicron that created a hybrid Deltacron, which that's my favorite name so far. That's gonna be my next band name is Deltacron. But which is not how viruses work. They don't like reproduce sexually, so like you can't mix them together like that. You could engineer them together like that, but you can't mix them together like that. That's not how they work.
Yeah. That's funny.
And then there's also, which maybe we'll cover this next week, there's also a growing body of evidence that Omicron was also a lab leaked variant. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
So there's when they study variants, they can plot them on the kind of genetic tree as to like where the differences are, and they can create like a tree of life for just that virus. And so the Omicron branched off in like March of 2020, and it just sat there and didn't infect anybody for almost 2 years until October, November of 2021, and all of a sudden it started infecting people. And so the question is, how did it just not infect anybody for a year and a half and then all of a sudden infect the whole world? Was it maybe because when it branched off, it was in a lab?
And it was less dangerous after, so it kind of is inoculating people as well, huh?
Yeah, it almost might be a vaccine. I don't know. But because lab leaks theory is verboten, I guess we'll have to research that a little more thoroughly.
So I think it's fairly obvious that the Chinese released this virus, right? Or at least, sorry, that's one possible method, right? But if the Chinese were to have released this virus and it caused all this damage and caused their Western adversaries to harm themselves so badly that they hamstrung their own economy, hurt their own people, caused so much more extra death and suffering to themselves, and a huge distraction from any possible threat they might come across. Why wouldn't they do it again? Like they made us hurt ourselves so badly. More than the virus ever could have. That them releasing that virus made us go into the last 2 years of self-harm as a country. Why wouldn't they do it again?
Oh, I don't know. But that's just a conspiracy theory, Dyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Minecraft, right?
Yeah. Well, like Joe Biden said, there's a lot of interesting things to look forward to in 2020. 2022, a lot of scary things to look forward to. But in theory, we should be done with the pandemic this year because of Omicron. So be thankful for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Fox.
Yeah, I know you've been begging. It was getting a little pathetic, so I decided I would just allow you to come onto my show for the day. And I much appreciate you joining me. So you're gonna be here next week?
Yes, that's my intention.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next week, and we much appreciate you for joining us. And we'll be back on Saturday next week.
All right. See you guys. Dire Wolf out.
All right. Have a good year, guys. Cheese.